Welcome to Writer's Block, March 28th. I'm David Samson, and today is opening day, and I get to pinch hit for the great Bill Reiter. We have got a great show. Opening day, we got a lot of baseball to talk. We've got highlights, we've got reactions, we've got my feelings on opening day. We also have Heath Cummings here because you know you want to talk fantasy. So let's get ready to roll. It's Writer's Block with Samson. Am I the only one who couldn't sleep last night? When you've got opening day coming up, when you're the president of a team or just a fan, it is a day of hope. You get to start off in first place and in last place. You get to not worry about what pundits say. You get to smell the fresh green grass and say to yourself, this could be the year that we get this. Don't talk about the fact that 29 teams aren't going to get them. Talk about the fact that your team could be the one. So here's how the season starts. The first thing we do, game one, we've got aces. Now, in this world of openers, right now, people don't focus on starting pitching, but today we get to. You've got Max Scherzer pitching against Jacob deGrom, and this was quite a game. It delivered exactly what you'd think it would. In comes deGrom, Scherzer. He starts off first inning. Scherzer never throws 95, 96 in the first inning, but that's what he was doing. Fastball, fastball. Then change up to Cano. His first at-bat, only the 10th player in Met history to start off his career with a home run. When you give deGrom a one-run lead, everyone keep calm. They needed some good defensive plays, but deGrom was in control. Cano tacked on another run. Then they actually went to their bullpen. They brought in Familia, traded for Diaz, and he got it done. Edwin Diaz with the save. If you're a Met fan, this is exactly what you want to see. You want to see deGrom, your ace. You want to see him go 6 innings. By the way, 10 strikeouts. Scherzer matched him with 12, 22 strikeouts. Hope you like strikeouts and home runs, because that's what baseball is, which we're going to talk about as this season progresses. Again, Nationals, there's no panic there. This is a National League East that is a very tough division, incredibly deep. What I'm looking for throughout the season, it's going to be the Nationals at the end, but really it's about depth and health. That's one thing as a team president I was never able to control. Who gets hurt, who doesn't get hurt. I look at the odds right now and I see that it's a 4-team race. Nationals, Phillies. Who's got the better team? The answer is, who plays better against the Marlins? They each get them 19 times. Marlins are looking at losing 100 games, even with a young, okay starting rotation. We're going to talk to Heath about their rotation. He sees a few winners there from a fantasy standpoint. I'm in the bit of the reality business. I see the Marlins losing about $100. So the Mets start off the season 1-0, and they got Syndergaard coming tomorrow. Next game, the Yankees opened. Do you know who they played? Yes, they did. Tanaka pitching instead of Severino goes against Andrew Cashner. Yeah, good thing Mo was there to throw out the first pitch. I don't think they're going to need Mo to close this game. Wait to see. First inning, Cashner's in trouble. When you've got Judge going opposite way, ground ball through the hole, and then you've got to face Giancarlo Stanton. That is just a breaking ball. It's not going to get it done. Stanton's up. Luke Voit, yeah, you got to face him. Maybe the strongest guy on that team, but if you put 87 right there, lower half, guess what? 3-0 Yankees. And really, 3-0 is going to be enough. Anyone think the Yankees will stop there? I don't think so. They're going to keep coming at you top to bottom. They end up winning that game. No Mariano Rivera needed. They did get Chapman an inning of work. They got Britton an inning of work. They got Ottavino an inning of work, and they're 1-0. How do you feel about that division, Yankees, Red Sox? That, to me, again, will come down to who plays better against the Orioles. The Orioles are going to lose $100, maybe even $120. If you're the 69 Mets, you're praying they've got a shot to really get you out of the record book. They're so bad. Whoever beats the Orioles more should win that division. We've got a game all day long. Chris Sale goes tonight. The defending World Series champions are opening up against a team for the first time in history that's already 2-0. They're facing the undefeated Seattle Mariners, who, after the emotion of Ichiro over in Japan, they're back to reality. They're back to facing a team like the Red Sox. my Grand Slam pick that you saw earlier today on the queue, I like the Red Sox to win this game. It is going to be a fun division to watch all season long. You've got, obviously, Red Sox, Yankees. You can sleep on the Blue Jays, and we already talked about the Orioles. Opening day. So many highlights to get to. We're going to tease the Brewers game. Did anyone watch how that Brewers game ended? I know you were waiting to watch me here filling in for Bill Reiter, but if you watch the end, the Brewers just beat the Cardinals 5-4. This game ends on a play. It's the top play. Play of the day. Play of the week. Play of the year. Lorenzo Cain. How come Josh Hader was pitching a 2-inning save to open the season? I have Craig Counsell as my manager of the year, but I have a little surprise for you, Craig. It's game 1 of 162. Josh Hader's arm is going to fall off if you keep pitching him this much. I get you want to beat the Cardinals. Important. Yelich goes deep, 3-run homer. Moustakas hit a home run in that game as well. But you've got to believe in the rest of your bullpen arms, because over a long season, I've seen it. I've put enough arms on the disabled list in my 18 years because I wanted every game to be Game 7 of the World Series. You simply cannot go that way if you're going to have a long, successful season the way the Brewers hope. We got a lot more coming up here on Writer's Block. I want to call it Samson's Block. I think we got Heath Cummings coming up next. He's joining the show, and we're talking fantasy. Welcome back to Writer's Block on this opening day of the Major League season 2019. I'm David Samson, not Bill Reiter. I'm filling in for him today and tomorrow. Thanks for tuning in to the Q. And I'm happy right now to welcome in a guy I look at every day here in the office in Fort Lauderdale, Florida. His name is Heath Cummings, and he is your fantasy guru. And we're going to talk a lot of fantasy, and we're going to talk just a little bit of reality, too. Welcome to the show, Heath. Thanks for being here.
Hey, it's the best day of the year. I'm happy to be here.
I'm glad you like it. I get butterflies opening day, and I don't even play. It's amazing.
Well, it's a day where everybody gets to be optimistic except for Orioles fans.
And Marlins fans. Although we're optimistic about the future. We want them not to lose more than 120 games. Let me get right to fantasy, because I spent a lot of time thinking about fantasy, 18 years running a sports team in reality, and I always had fantasy players around me, and I want to talk a little bit about that after. But I want to know right now, this year, who's the best fantasy player in Major League Baseball?
Oh, the best in Major League Baseball is Mookie Betts. He's not the best player in baseball, but that's kind of where the two, reality and fantasy, get mixed up, because Betts is on the best offense in baseball. He's going to hit towards the top of that order, number 2 now. I expect him to have a better batting average, more stolen bases, and more runs plus RBI. Trout's still the best player in baseball, but Betts is the best fantasy player.
So in your mind, when you're drafting, you don't look to see who the best player is. You're focused on who's going to get you the most fantasy points, regardless of contract, service time. You're solely focused on numbers, right?
Well, we factor those things in. That's part of how we come up with who the best is. But yeah, I'm not too worried about those other things. I just want to score the most points.
Well, that's what you see. I'm into runs, but I'm really into wins. So therefore, you go through your whole fantasy draft. Right now, people are watching. They've got their team. They're a few games in. Give us a heads up. Who's going to be the biggest disappointment in the fantasy year this year?
I think the biggest disappointment is going to be Madison Bumgarner. I just watched him give up a home run to Will Myers. He is not fooling anyone today, and that's nothing new. He has not fooled anyone for 2 years. Has not averaged better than a strikeout per inning for the last 2 years. His ERA's been okay, but the peripherals have not been great. The innings per start have not been great. He's too young to say that he's over the hill and things. But his arm may not be because of all those postseason innings. I'm very concerned about Bumgarner.
So as an executive, I'm very concerned about Bumgarner. We talked about, would you want to trade for him? Would you want to get him as a free agent? And our view of pitching is they only have a certain number of pitches. And when you go deep into the postseason as often as he has, there's no question that has a lagging impact toward the end of your career. He's not a young guy in terms of arm. So you call him a disappointment. I call him, as a player, overpaid. So I think that may be similar.
Oh, absolutely. And people overpaid for him on draft day because of the name and because the ERA's been okay the last couple of years. But I really think he'll have a hard time this year being a top 30 starting pitcher in terms of at least fantasy results.
I think fantasy owners may be like real owners. They get very seduced by the name on the back of the jersey, and sometimes they forget to look at performance and value. And that's something that as team presidents and GMs and fantasy gurus, I'm sure you try to instill on people. It's not always going to be the name. So along those lines, who would you say would be the steal? Right now, if I'm doing a draft, who's the player you're looking at? No one else is looking.
Well, I think people are looking now, but they weren't looking as early as they should have been for most of the preseason, and that's Eloy Jimenez. I love this kid's profile, and I love the fact that he's already had some exposure to the higher levels and really succeeded there. Most importantly, the White Sox gave him that deal. He's starting out the year in the major leagues. I think he has the potential in year one to be a 290, 300 hitter, approach 30 home runs, drive in 100 runs. Eloy Jimenez is going to be a top 24 pick overall next year. He was available around pick 120 this season.
So do you factor in how bad a team is around a player when you're looking at who's going to be the steal? Because for him to get 30 and 100, the way RBIs work, someone has to be on base for him to get that. You can get the 30 home runs. I'm trying to figure out on the White Sox who's going to be on base ahead of him.
Well, the nice thing is that most teams, not counting the Marlins and the Orioles, no matter how bad your team is, you have 2 or 3 good hitters, and the White Sox do too. Jose Abreu, I would expect, maybe not opening day, but throughout the season is going to hit either right in front of or right behind Jimenez this year. I think the White Sox have enough at the top of their order. The key for Jimenez is not so much how bad the White Sox are, it's performing to the point to where they put him in the middle of the order. A middle of the order hitter on a bad team is still okay.
I'm going to write that down. A middle-of-the-order hitter on a bad team is still okay. All right, let's talk fantasy reality. Let's try to make our listeners and viewers understand the difference. Take the best fantasy team you can put together, your top 25 guys. Do you think that fantasy team could make the playoffs in Major League Baseball? And if so, why?
Well, I think they'd be the favorite to win the World Series. They may not, but the big difference in fantasy is we don't have to have 5 guys on the end of our bench that aren't actually good Major League players. We don't have any sort of tax that we have to try to avoid with our salary. Most of these leagues are 12-team leagues where you get just the pick of the litter. So a lot of guys that are on rosters, the Boston Red Sox, the New York Yankees, we're not going to touch them in fantasy because they're not good enough.
You know, so what you're saying is an all-star team, regardless of payroll, would be a team that could make it to the playoffs but not necessarily win the World Series. And you brought up the best point of all that fans have to remember. To win a ring, you know how much luck is involved? Take a look at every World Series winner. Sometime during the playoff run, they needed something crazy to happen. And I'm not talking about Steve Bartman. I'm talking you need overperformance by a player that you didn't expect. You need a really hot pitcher like Bumgarner was 3 different times. Something has to happen. So I'm willing to give you that the best fantasy team would make the playoffs, but I still would say the World Series winner is way too impossible to predict.
It is, and that, even you look at a team like the Los Angeles Dodgers. They have been phenomenal over the last 2 years. They have 0 rings to show for it. Just a few years back, you can look at the Kansas City Royals, who were basically good for 3 seasons, got to the World Series twice and won it once. So yeah, you get to the key is get to the playoffs, and then we'll try to win after we get there.
So you're in this office, and I see you playing fantasy all the time. Quick question for you. Do you think that as a fantasy owner that you could actually be the GM or president of a team? Careful here.
I am certain that there are a lot of things that go into being the GM or the president that we're not prepared for as fantasy players. I would say, though, that I think there are people in our industry that could definitely help some front offices around baseball, especially those that are more analytic averse.
So I've spent a lot of time talking to fantasy guys, and I think it's amazing. And what I would do as a team president, which I did, is we had fantasy guys who played in the room because I always want to hear different points of view. What always bothered me, though, were the individuals who thought that the fantasy side was the only side, much like saying the analytics side is the only side, or me saying the scouting with your eyes is the only side. To me, when you're putting a team together, you need everything in order to help you make good decisions. And your knowledge of the game, players from really 1 to 1,000, is something that would be very important. So if things don't really work out in the queue, I have some connections with some big league teams. But 29 out of 30, not 30 anymore.
I appreciate that. This is the same thing that we tell fantasy owners. We have a lot of debates between what the scout says about players and how they were ranked as prospects and then what the underlying stats say once they get here. And I don't think either of those things need to be used entirely. You've got to combine the two if you want to have the best approach.
Okay, Heath, I can't let you go. We have to do one more thing. It's called the lightning round. And here's how this game works. I'm going to ask you a question, and you have to say the first answer that comes to your mind.
You're going to get me in trouble here.
Oh, there's no question that you may get in trouble, but I guarantee you're going to have fun. So it's called the lightning round. So remember, this is word association, whatever comes to your mind. You ready?
I am probably not ready, but let's go anyway.
The biggest fantasy disappointment in baseball history was?
Jonathan VR. He was so awesome for the Brewers. It was 2016. And by midway through 2017, he not only lost his job, he'd lost his manager's confidence. Now he's on the Orioles.
Which is not very good. Best fantasy game ever by a player, and who was that player?
Scooter Gennett, 2017, scored 98 FanDuel points in one game. A lot of teams don't score 98 FanDuel points, and those are the bad ones. He had 4 home runs, 10 RBI in that game.
That's a game you can only dream about. Who's your favorite team, Heath?
It is the Kansas City Royals.
Would you shave your beard in order to guarantee a fantasy league victory?
Do I have to keep it shaved or just shave it and then I can grow it back?
I'm asking the questions. Would you shave your beard to guarantee a fantasy league win?
Championships, 100%.
You heard it from Heath. He would shave his beard. There are players who I had who would not shave their beard for a ring. Can you imagine being that attached that you wouldn't shave for an actual ring?
Well, were you guaranteeing them the ring, or were you telling them if we all shave our beards, we're going to go win a ring?
I was saying if you don't shave your beard, you can't play on the team. I believe that's how it went.
Okay.
Heath, thank you so much for joining us. See you soon.
Anytime.
That was Heath Cummings. You can follow him on Twitter. He knows exactly what he's doing in fantasy. If you're trying to win your league, you're going to want to pay attention to what he says game to game. He follows the waiver wire. He's paying attention to trends. He is someone to pay close attention to. We've got a lot more here on Writer's Block. David Samson filling in. Stay tuned. We will be right back. Welcome back to Writer's Block. We've got some extensions to talk about. Can you believe what we did this whole offseason? It was about extensions. It was about free agents. Are they ever going to find a place to play? Why is it that all these young players are signing away their free agent years before they become eligible? Is it because of owners' collusion? No. It's because they realize if they can get guaranteed money, they ought to take it. If teams are willing to pay and overpay early, why not do it? Let's get inside the numbers because I want to give you some details and some nuggets about these contract extensions that you may not have heard quite yet. Let's start with Mike Trout. That's the number one extension. He broke the record, $430 million. Do you want to know how that contract happened? Artie Moreno, the owner of the Angels, said to Trout, "I'm not letting you go to Philly. I'm not letting Bryce Harper tamper with you anymore. I want you to be an Angel forever. What's it going to take?" He said it's going to take 400 plus. Artie Moreno said, "How many playoff games have we won with you?" Mike Trout said 0. Artie Moreno said, "Okay, 430 million. What is going on? You've got to build a team in baseball. One player can't do it. Is Trout the best? Yes. Is he being overpaid? Yes. Will he be this good till he's 39? Wait to see. But more importantly, will the Angels win a playoff game in his career? That's the most important. What about some of these other extensions? We talked about Nolan Arenado. When I was running the team, he was the single best third baseman in baseball, period. Not just slugging percentage, defense, in the clubhouse, off the field, everything about him. Why did the Rockies want to lock him up? Because he is their singular superstar. They already had Charlie Blackmon, but they needed Arenado to stay. They've had a good run. I like their team. I like what they're trying to do. But in Colorado, without proper starting pitching, you're going to struggle. They showed some signs last year. They signed a bunch of bullpen arms. And knowing they've got Arenado, who had the highest AAV, over $30 million when he signed this, that is comforting to an ownership group. But still, unless you're going to have a very high payroll, paying one player that high a percentage does not help you win games. Let's keep looking at extensions. Alex Bregman. Why did the Astros sign him to 6 years, $100 million? This is a young guy. We've read about him. Arbitration eligible, not even close to free agency. I like cost certainty, but I don't like it if I'm the Astros. I've got a deep farm system. I know I'm going to have to let some players go. I let Dallas Keuchel go this year. Charlie Morton disappeared. I still have Verlander at the top, and we signed him to a 2-year extension, $33 million plus. I can't imagine he's $33 million worth that, but the Astros are doing their best. Actually, right now they're beating Blake Snell. More people doing extensions. Chris Sale, Boston Red Sox. Why? No reason. His arm may be falling off, not like Josh Hader, but he struggled. They've had to hold him off due to load management. He's pitched deep into the playoffs. And what they did is they rewarded him with a huge sum of money. Does he have the highest strikeout percentage in baseball? Yeah, but guess what? Everybody's striking out. Rick Porcello, he's saying, I want to stay, and the Red Sox are saying no. Was it the right move? Yankees, $40 million, 4 years, Luis Severino. He pitched opening day today. No, he didn't. He's already hurt. They went with Tanaka opening day. By the way, I could have filled in and pitched against the Orioles today. Blake Snell, giving up 5 runs. You're not watching that because you're watching me. Blake Snell comes in. He gets a 5-year deal off a Cy Young award. Right now, when you run a team, don't do things at the end of the best year of someone's career. You have to have good enough scouts to do things after the worst year. Jacob deGrom, they signed him because of PR coming off the best year he's ever had. If you're going to run a successful team, you have to do things that are unpopular. That's inside the numbers. This has been David Samson doing the Writer's Block. This is fun, so much fun, that if they let me keep the microphone, I get to do it again tomorrow, 5 o'clock. Make sure you're watching the Q all day for highlights of opening day and opening night, and we will see you again tomorrow on the Writer's Block with David Samson.